Hey Brian, how are you? Welcome to episode 107. We're here for a live drawing. We've continued cranking right along. We're on page 33 of Undersea Hero. Tonight we'll be working on this. I'll show the last page that we finished. Posted this during the week. This is page 32. This is the big punch. We've brought the scene back from the undersea casino with a big punch correlator getting knocked back in a very Sal Buscema-esque. Oh, we've got Professor Prawn tonight, let me tell you. A whole page of him. And then we have our close-up of the crazy-eyed correlator here. I might redraw this panel. I don't know, there's something about these eyes that's not working for me, but I thought this top panel section with Undersea Hero, given the like, oh geez, that must have hurt kind of face, came out pretty well. I thought this section worked nicely storytelling-wise. So, and tonight on page 33, here's our prelim. You can see that we have Professor Prawn saying, "At last, my unstoppable force shall be unleashed. My moment is at hand," and he presses the button. And then, of course, there's like a whole bunch of sound effects that tell him that this isn't working, and he's wiggling his mustache back and forth inquisitively. And then Professor Prawn hears from the correlator just yelling, "Where's my krill force?" And then we go to Professor Prawn, and he's just like, "Give me a sec, geez," and he's flipping the power on and off. The old adage of if you tried turning it off and then turning it back on again, and that's what he's doing. So relatable, simple, but I think effective, especially for just 6 panels to give us the false start of krill force being unleashed. So we didn't want it to be, one thing into the next. Professor Prawn is fun to draw. I like drawing the little shrimp guys. I just really like drawing the sea creatures. At some point, I wonder if I could get away with doing a story with no people in it, where it's just sea creatures. But I guess we're kind of far away from that at this point. But for anyone who hasn't seen me draw Professor Prawn, I draw him basically like drawing a hot dog, like this, or a pickle. I guess he's more of a pickle shape. And then, he's got 2 little feet that stick out at the bottom, like this. And this is all going to get covered up by his platform, but I'm just trying to get the height right for when he's got a little platform. And there's a little handlebar in the front. And then there's like a Professor Prawn logo that's just a shrimp. The top part of the P is a shrimp. That's his logo. And there's the 2 little boosters that scoot him around with like little Jetsons trails that are circles. One arm is going up, which I might actually have to move this hand a little bit. But that's the beauty of working in multiple types of graphite at the start. I hope everyone, if anybody's watching from San Diego, all my pals, I've got a bunch of friends. I feel bad I'm not there. A bunch of my friends that are there for the first time. And I could have been the tour guide for them, but I'm sure they'll do great. My buddy Nate Lovett's going to his first show. He's got Sean Forney to show him around, and Ray Height will be there to show him around. So he won't be lost, but he's one of my oldest friends. I would have really liked to have been there for him, and I am not. So really want to exaggerate the crazy swirly eyes on these 2 panels. When he really goes into crazy mode, it's like a little, like the hypnosis swirls. That's what pops up in his eyes. But we're cranking along. We're on page 33. So I've got to go back and finish a couple of pages that I've penciled. There's a couple of 2-page spreads that I've been chipping away at that I knew would take a long time. Um, and I'll just keep noodling at those as I work on other pages. Oh, man. His mustache is so big and bushy, it actually goes past his eyes, so you don't even see the edges of his head. And then the top of his head has the Einstein hair, so it's like a big, or Doc Brown hair, whatever pop culture reference best gets the point across. I guess it depends on the age group. Um, but yeah, there's a fair number of people in here, so I guess I'll let it be known that I'll be at the Baltimore Comic Con this year at the end of September. It's the weekend of the 20th, 21st in there. Ben Edlund will be there, and I'll be there with Jeff McClelland. We'll be splitting a space together, and hopefully there's more to announce in the future. But the yearbook theme for Baltimore this year is the Tick, and that was what my crossover piece that I was working on was for, and I was told that it will be in the book. So um, there will be an official published image of the Tick and Undersea Hero teaming up in this year's yearbook for Baltimore Comic Con, which is very exciting. I will be there with like all sorts of Tick stuff because it's like a Tick celebration, but I will have, copies of issue 0 there. Which most people I think already have, or if they back the Kickstarter, they'll be getting shortly. I will not likely have issue 1 in hand at that point, and besides, I would not be putting that anywhere before the Kickstarter people got it. So do not worry in that regard. Yeah, Brian, I think that either Jeff or I could swing one for you. I know that we get one for having been in it, but I'm sure we could buy one for you because they sell them at the show. And it's a hardbound book. The yearbooks are pretty, but I'm sure we could help you. You've helped us so much. I'm sure we could help facilitate that. And some of the other artist guests at the show have already been posting their Tick artwork around, and a lot of the times that ends up in the auction. They do an auction to benefit the show, and they put the pages in the book. Usually, you don't have to, and I'm not because that piece is really special to me. It's really like it feels like a passing of the torch of my creative time piece. So I don't want to part with that. I will put a different piece in the auction though. I will do something. I'll do a sketch cover or something Tick related for them. It's just that particular piece means a lot to me. So I have not done Baltimore since before COVID started. I was actually there with Mike Vosberg, and I was across from David Peterson. So but this week is San Diego Comic Con, and I'm not there this year. I wished everybody good luck, and it's a ton of work. It's a ton of stress, but it's awesome. There's this false narrative, in my opinion, that goes around that it's not a comic book show, and what's crazy about it is that it is a giant comic book show. Like it's just right next to a giant media show in the same building, and that can be, you know, contentious. Like if you have the money, you can walk in and buy any comic book that has like ever been. If you want a Detective 27, they got a Detective 27. You want an Action 1, there's an Action 1. You want, a Marvel Comics #1, it's usually at the Heritage booth, but there's usually one there. Um, and just amazing artwork is there. Like there's endless Kirby pages. There's Frazettas. There's if you're a collector of comic stuff and artwork and you have the money, it's all there. And to me, when you have those big items like that, like that just tells you the type of dollars going through the door. And eBay sets up their own booth. The biggest art dealers in the world set up there. So San Diego is a real comic book show, and I really think that every comic fan, if it's really their thing, that they like comic books and they want to meet the West Coast creators and they want to be like really see what big fandom looks like, you got to do it once. And honestly, like after you get the ticket, like the rest of it's pretty easy. It's getting the ticket in the door that's the hard part because you got to enter the lotteries and stuff. I mean, there's plenty of places to stay. It just doesn't mean you're going to necessarily stay right next to the convention. I stayed out in El Cajon a couple of times, and that was just a short lift ride, or a couple times Jeff picked me up on his way in. That's an easy one. El Cajon's just right down the road. It's 10 minutes, 15-minute ride, and I saved a ton of money staying out there. And I ate at an amazing Laotian place. I'd never been to. A family from Laos had a restaurant, and I had like the biggest, best fresh rolls I've ever had. I would be there to sign at the NEC booth, but I didn't stay with Bob or NEC. So like I would either stay with Jeff or I'd get my own place, or we would, a few creators would get together and we'd split a place or whatever. When I just say Jeff, it's Jeff McClellan. He's the writer on the Tick. So he's also the creator of Planet Comics and Teddy and Yeti and all kinds of other books. So but yeah, it was so important. The first time I got out there, I felt like, when I was growing up, I had people telling me that drawing won't get me anywhere. And, it was proof positive that for the first time, I got to see the Pacific Ocean. I'd never seen the Pacific Ocean in person. Of course, I'd studied stuff that lived in it and like seen it on TV, but like I had not seen the Pacific Ocean in person before I did San Diego the first time. And the thing that I explain to people is that it's a sprawl, like it's not just in the building. So like let's say you don't want to necessarily walk the floor, you could still experience a lot of Comic Con in the Gaslamp district and or in the surrounding areas, because all of the restaurants and stuff get turned into like pop-ups and stuff. And there are experiences that you can just go walk through for free for TV shows. I remember walking through the Picard one before that show started. They had like, a museum type display set up. They had all kinds of stuff from the Next Generation there. If you like that sort of stuff and you don't necessarily want to, or you don't get a ticket, like it doesn't mean you can't experience like stuff in San Diego of Comic Con. Like they take over Petco Park. There's usually a giant Cartoon Network display there. Professor Prawn's just fun to draw, and honestly, like I can't wait to see other people try to draw him. and just what their versions look like. Because he's just a few different shapes, and he's very silly. And I think people could have a lot of fun just trying to draw him if they like to draw or want to try to draw. It's a very forgiving design, I think, with his big mustache and his big hair. But yeah, other San Diego stories. I mean, I would say that there were, I got to meet so many there's a few creators that like were never at their booth, so I never got to meet them. Like I did not get to meet what's his name? The terrific Filipino artist. God, where's my brain at the moment? I'm looking it up because I Alex Nino. Alex Nino. He was he had a booth there. I met his son, but I did not get to meet Alex Nino. Of course, I just did that to the paper. Can't tell you how many pieces of paper I've ruined just by leaning on them. Alex Nino is just a terrific artist. Hey Andrew, how you doing? Just sharing tales of San Diego's past. Just talking about different creators. Like before he passed away, I got to see Kim Jung-gi, probably one of the best artists. At one time, the unanimous, amongst other artists, best artist in the world. And I know that because it's not just because I say it, it's because when I went over to his booth, he had a display with a TV so you could watch him draw from afar. And I stopped and I just started to watch. And when I took a moment to look around me, it was all creators. Like Dave Johnson was standing next to me. All those guys, Cully Hamner, Dan Panosian. I believe Mike Mignola was there. Jeff Darrow was there. David Lloyd was there. And we were all just watching this guy draw, and everyone was just like amazed. So when you see an artist that's so good that it makes world-class artists like stop and just like mouths agape watch this guy work, that tells you how good he was. It's like when they ask Hall of Fame athletes, like, who would you pay to watch play today? Who's somebody that you'd put your own money down? And clearly, Master Kim was one of those for a lot of people, and he passed away at a young age a couple years ago now. Got to meet Claudio Castellini there, Italian artist. Who else did I meet that like you don't see everywhere? The Hernandez brothers. You never see the Hernandez brothers out east, and they're just incredible, industry important, just monumental creators. And it was so funny. The first year I was there, the New England Comics booth was like catty corner from the DC booth, and have I ever met Jeff Isherwood? Yes. Andrew's asking if I ever met Jeff Isherwood. I was at the Vermont Comic Con, and this is no joke. I mean, the convention doesn't really exist in its original form anymore, so I feel like I can speak like this. Like, they treated me very nicely. I did the artwork for the poster. They gave me a guest spot. They took care of me. They even gave me a hotel room for this. Yes. Jeff Isherwood, Joe St. Pierre, and I'm trying to remember who the other artists were. There was only a handful of folks that had done like some mainstream comics. There was a lot of independent folks that were terrific artists, but like I would say that by and large, it was a handful of us that had done those types of books, and then there were some like mid-level celebrity types, and it was the slowest show I have ever done. I had never had a show that slow, and it wasn't just me, because if it's just me, that's fine. People don't like my stuff or whatever. It was the people who I was with that could also affirm this, that there was just not a lot of people coming through the door. People were nice. People who were there were checking out our work, purchasing stuff, but I would say that like it was the slowest foot traffic show like I had ever done. Um, and I wasn't like, in the nosebleed section. I was surrounded by who were the top artists at the show. So it was not a case of where, they put me on. The show was in Boston and I was sitting in Worcester. But Jeff's very nice, and I've met him at a few other shows. He's a very good artist. He's a teacher. He teaches drawing and art as like his day job on top of doing all of his comic work. And I was thrilled to see that he's back doing a story at Savage Sword. Actually first saw his work in Doctor Strange when I was a kid. Like that was the first time I saw his work. Was actually the Killian annual of Doctor Strange. It was a 90s annual. They sold it at the drugstore near where I live, and that was the first time I saw his work. I don't own any originals by him. I think I have a couple of books signed by him. Um, I think I have a Power Man and Iron Fist that he did, signed by him, and I have a Conan, the Hiku trilogy. That was a Jim Owsley written, also known as Christopher Priest, written story. It's a terrific story. It's a three-part story, the Hiku trilogy. I highly recommend it. As far as Conan the Barbarian runs that did not have like Big John or Rudy Nebres or the Barry Smiths of the world. It was beautifully drawn by Jeff and Val Simics, um, and it was just a lovely story. And I had Christopher Priest sign that as well. Yes, that's what I had. One of the books I had Jeff sign. Um, I mean, there are so many artists that do so many shows that you just see them around. Like, you see them around, at a ton of shows. Like the people who have the reps and everything else. But the first year I was there, it was the first or second year I was there. Ron Wilson and Keith Pollard were sitting next to each other in Artist Alley, and they were getting their Ink Pot awards. And I just walked up to them, and there was nobody around. I mean, I don't know if it was just a lull or maybe they just got back from lunch or what, but I was so lucky to get to spend a good 15 minutes just picking these guys' brains and talking comic artwork and drawing. And I ended up buying a very inexpensive Ron Wilson page. It was a page from Arion, Lord of Atlantis. So it's a fantasy page from DC. And yeah, I think it was like $35. Arion's in it. There's a monster. There's Power Girl is on it. And I remember I picked it up and Ron said, "Hey man, none of those pages are from like Marvel 2-in-1 or whatever." And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to look at these pages. And if I can afford one, I will buy one. And I've gotten to see Ron at a bunch of shows over the years. He ended up having some different reps rep him. And he's done some Conan covers. I don't know if he ever did any Savage Sword stories. I'm sure he would like to do that. He likes fantasy comics. Um, Trying to think of other Conan artists that I've met. Ron Garney, met Ron Garney several times. When I met Todd McFarlane, I asked him about that Conan cover, and he basically was just like, "Yeah, they asked me to do it, so and I had time." And it didn't seem like he was a giant Conan fan. Like he didn't not like it, but it wasn't like he was, begging Roy Thomas for a Conan cover. I've met Rudy Nebres several times over the years. He's a very nice guy. Love his artwork. Just immaculate organization to his line work. Just it's almost like a fingerprint the way he draws. New person over on YouTube. Hello, Gene. Thanks for popping into the drawing stream. Working on Undersea Hero, my comic book here. Character named Professor Prawn, who is about to unleash what is known as Krill Force. It's an army of shrimp. I never met John Buscema. I met Sal Buscema. Pat Broderick did some Savage Sword. Mike Vosberg did some Conan. Inked by Alfredo Alcala. And I remember asking Mike about that. And because Mike has had so many different inkers over the years. He loved what Alcala did because some people didn't like all the flourishes that they would add. They would want like a simple, more graphical approach. But Mike was very complimentary of it. He actually liked it very much. Rich Buckler was also similar that way. I met Rich many times. He was a friend of mine, I would say. We knew each other and would, get dinner with one another at conventions we saw each other at. Yeah, he's another guy who I would ask him about all the different inkers he worked with because he worked with a million. Like, he had certain favorite ones for certain favorite things. Like, whenever he did Fantastic Four, his favorite inker was, of course, Joe Sinnott because, like, Joe Sinnott had inked Kirby and Buscema and then him and then Ron. He was on Fantastic Four forever. So, like, and he felt that it gave the right look of the Fantastic Four because a lot of the look of Fantastic Four was from Joe Sinnott inking it. Not that other guys didn't do a good job on him, but he just felt for that book. At least that's what he told me. So, your mileage may vary, I suppose. Yeah, meeting Keith Pollard and Ron Wilson at San Diego was awesome. Trying to think of other artists and stuff that I've only met at San Diego because, like, so many artists I've met at like multiple shows over the years. I did meet Jim Zub last year. I met him at the Titan booth because I had done the Conan cover. I went over and just introduced myself and just told them if they ever had any openings for an interior gig of even short story or whatever on Conan or whatever I would love to do it, but that never manifested. And I've come to accept a lot of the times when you do those specialty covers, it's very unlikely that it'll lead to. Gene says, Krill Force sounds awesome. I figured I like watching drawing process and stuff, so I'd check out the stream. Well, thank you very much for coming by. And yeah, I can. This is the preliminary drawing, so you can actually see like my little prelim sketch here, and then this is me doing the final pencils, and then I'll come back in and ink this later. Tonight we'll see how far we get on the penciling because we've got 6 panels to get through. Here we are on panel 2. Professor Prawn, that's like, he's got like the crazy eyes there. Brian says, Kyla says she would buy a plushie of Professor Prawn and Colonel Feathers. Oh, thank you. Like we'll get there. We'll get there to where we're doing merchandise. I know that that's the exciting part for stuff, but I just I will add it to the list. I promise. But I gotta finish the book so people can find out that it's can decide if they like it enough or not for buying anything at all. That's what I'm working on. Actually, gotta add more of a shadow here. There we go. And then these are actually going to need to be circles. Those are the little dots on them. Andrew said, yeah, sure, it's going to be the next Savage Sword. Yeah, Jeff is, I was happy for Jeff when I saw that. Other Conan artists I've met. Yeah, Rich Buckler, Rudy Nebres, Salvi Sema. I've never met Barry Windsor Smith. Jeff Fisher-Wood, Ron Garney, Mohamed Asrar I met years ago before he did Marvel or anything, when he was doing stuff for digital webbing. And what was the image comic, the superhero image comic he did? I don't remember. Oh, Kari Andrews, he did some variants and stuff. Colleen Doran, who did that great variant for issue 1. I thought that was just a beautiful painting. I never met Alcala. I never met Ernie Chan. I never met John Buscema. I met Roy Thomas a handful of times. I don't know if I want to elaborate on that. Frank Frazetta. Met Frank Frazetta. Yeah, I didn't think of that because it wasn't the comic books, you know. Frank Frazetta and Ellie at the museum. I used to stop there on my way driving east, heading to Nantucket from my parents' house. Dick Giordano I met several times. He did some Conan. Walt Simonson did some Conan. Yeah, I've been lucky. I've met a ton of people. Mary Wilshire. Got another hello from YouTube. I don't know what your how to pronounce your name, so but thank you very much. Try to say hello to everybody. There's a big like lightning bolt coming down as he's pressing the button. Oh, we took it easy tonight. We ordered a pizza. We did not cook this evening, so it's his left hand, so we want to make sure it's still his left hand when he pushes the button. See how he's got his like left arm, panel 1, left arm up. We got to make sure that he's pushing down with the left arm, so he's going like this, and it's actually turned, so like his thumb is like this, except it's pointed down. So. Asked him where I'm from. I'm from all around. I've moved around a lot, but I live in New England. And I think I even put that in my stream, and it's, you know, you can see it on my profile, so it's not a trade secret. Michael DeFonte, hello. Welcome aboard. Jay Kennedy is in the house. Jay, how you doing? Drawing a shrimp, very dramatically pressing a button, and then that's what I'm up to. So I actually got to move the thumb over. This hand is just placed poorly. Bad placement from the jump, so we got to erase it and start over. I'm actually going to flip it upside down because I think it'll be easier to draw that way. So like here's the line where we want that. Sean Nicky says, They met me a couple of months ago at a con, said I was nice, and I signed a Tick comic for them. Oh, you're very welcome. So you're a big fan of the Tick, and as I'm contractually obligated to state, he's a big fan of you too. That's one of the jokes that NEC always likes to say when they're at a. Their art director is Bob Polio, and he likes to say that when someone says, "I like the Tick," he likes you too. He says it kind of in that tone, so that was a crude impression of the art director there. Sorry, Bob. But yeah, we will be. As I mentioned, I'll be at the Baltimore Comic Con in September. That's the big convention I mentioned in the description of the video. So they'll be doing a big Tick celebration. Ben Edlund will be there, Jeff McClellan, myself, along with much more famous artists. Jim Lee will be there. I'll see Dave Johnson, I'm sure. Rich Case, there's another one that's just a terrific artist. Did Doom Patrol, done Spider-Man, done all kinds of books, and a really nice guy. Ah, fellow Tick fans meeting on YouTube. That's very nice. If you enjoy the Tick and you enjoy my work on the Tick, and if you didn't catch the Kickstarter, I'll ask you to at some point in the future, maybe around the winter, you'll check out Undersea Hero. It's my original creator-owned superhero comedy. That'll be super fun. To me, that again, I keep messing up this hand. Like the placement just isn't right. Like it needs to be further this way. So we will try again because it needs to have a certain amount of weight to it. And this is one of those things that when you're doing a thumbnail, it's to me drawing at this size, I'm able to get more energy into it, more gusto. So let's draw a grid over this, just like you're in school again, so that we can try to figure this out. Let's go like this, and then we draw the grid over here, middle, here, here, just like we're back in school. Goes from here, past the center point, comes down, comes back up like this, and then the finger comes down like this. Shawneki, sorry. What's my favorite character in the Tick? Well, since you asked, my favorite character in the Tick, other than the Ben Edlund's The Tick, is actually a character named Caped Cod. He's my favorite character. That's why I put him in my Baltimore artwork. I've got it right here. I can show the Baltimore artwork. Here it is. So this character right here, he was created by Sean Wong in the Tick and Arthur series, and And you can see all the Baltimore artwork. You can see the color version on my Facebook and Twitter and everything. So, um, but yeah, he's my favorite Tick character, I would say, and it's because like I know that guy. I live in New England. I've been to Cape Cod many times over my life. I know that guy. And the cool thing I like about Cape Cod, and it's an interesting story, is usually when a character is a jerk, they're not a hero. And he's a jerk and a hero. So like, and it's not in a cheeky way. It's not in a like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, winking at the camera way. He's legitimately a jerk, and yet he still does the right thing. And that dichotomy I find interesting. And thinking about why that is actually like one of my like it's the white whale of stories for the Tick that I still have in my head. It's the secret origin of Cape Cod, and I've written it out. I have a script for it. I even pitched it to the company on more than one occasion as just a backup story, and they wouldn't do it. So, um, and they did not do it not because the script made them laugh. So like, it's not because they didn't think it was funny. Um, It was just because honestly, NEC is not really publishing very many comics these days. And at the time, they didn't have any regular books coming out. They still don't. It's one of the reasons I had to work on my own characters was because I just have these ideas that I didn't want them to go to waste. Um, and if I didn't think they were good, and I have ideas that I know aren't good, and I'm not going to ever spend the time to make a comic book or draw them, um, that I believe in them and that like other people think they are good too, and I've shown them to people who are much bigger talents than I am, and they believe in them. So, and these are people who wouldn't just like say nice things to say nice things. Like I have shown people stuff like that in the past, and I generally don't show them my stuff again. Like I then who knows. So I'm sure that's a when pigs fly situation, Ben, for Ben to give me the rights to tell that story. But the weird thing about Cape Cod though is, and this is where the hang up is that Ben does not own Cape Cod. New England Comics owns Cape Cod. Shaniki says Chairface is his favorite character because he's like a surrealist painting. Yes, it's a wonderful. Chairface is a great villain, or Pineapple Pocketpoke, the Red Eye. There's some very good Rogues Gallery villains. An underrated comic books Rogues Gallery in the Tick, I must say. Everybody talks about the Flash villains or whatever, but it's funny. I also have some friends that are in the Baltimore Comic Con yearbook, and they messaged me about drawing the Tick because they were drawing him for the yearbook and they'd never drawn him before. And the Tick is actually harder than you think he is to draw because there's no pattern on his suit to like, be there to um, be a crutch. So like you can't like with Spider-Man's webbing, you can cover up some bad anatomy with the webbing. It's just true. Like if you busy it up, people don't notice that you drew it badly because it's got, oh, look at all the detail in that webbing. Well, he's got, 6 biceps or whatever. or his deltoids are attached to the wrong bones, or there's just so many ways to cover stuff up with a character like Spider-Man that and it always looks better when they're not and they know what they're doing, like a Joe St. Pierre or whoever, you know. I have taken the discussion of there's demand for the tick as far as I wish to take it. I've had many a long nights talking with my collaborators, with the publisher themselves, and that's why I've just kind of said, you know what, I'll just make my own comics. I have traveled and been the standard bearer for Tick Comics for the last 9 years at conventions all across the country. And all I can do is tell them what the fans tell me. And they didn't listen. So they didn't listen to the fans, they didn't listen to me. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to make my own comics. So, and I promise you that if you liked the one issue of the Tick that I wrote and drew, um, this is better written because like it's not edited to high heaven. Jay Kennedy says he's got a bounce. Later, Jay. And look, I love the Tick. Like I have been the best ambassador I can be for it. Um, you know, I have taken it to Cleveland, Colorado, California, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, um, Ohio, Indiana, like all just states all over Maryland, Delaware, Vermont, of course, Massachusetts, Connecticut, um, and done the best I could um, for a long time. And NEC has just kind of stopped publishing comics, like new comics. So, but if you like the one issue that I wrote and drew, it's like that but better and sillier and more fun and like 10 times as much underwater. I also love hand lettering. Undersea Hero is probably the last project where I'm going to do the lettering separately. I've been doing all the lettering for like just like this, but using templates and just a little cleaner. Like that's been my lettering lately. And Undersea Hero is like kind of how I used to letter, but we've already come this far and I can't like pivot halfway through. So we'll finish it as is and then it'll still be hand lettered, just it's not on the board, it's done digitally. So now I'm actually going to a fully on the board lettering process. So this came out well, this panel right here. This one needs some work. This one we've been fighting our way through, and I think it's close. We do need to just like exaggerate the finger a little bit more. I think that'll do it. If we exaggerate the finger just a little bit more. And hey, look, if NEC wanted to publish more comics or gave any inkling that they wanted to publish more comics, I would absolutely bug them about it more. But there may be a small announcement about something that has already been written and drawn and has been on the shelf, but I don't know for sure yet. Because, like, again, NEC is NEC. But if look, we're always trying. Jeff and I have never given up And it has always been something that we try to make happen. Because Jeff loves the character. Like, Jeff is the reason why Free Comic Book Day comics happened in the first place. It's not because NEC came up with a great idea, it's because Jeff did it. Jeff came up with the idea. Jeff did the first issue for nothing. He did not get paid for the first issue. Uh-oh, was that a trade secret that I just let slip? And the book did so well that NEC said, oh, well, yeah, we'll do this again. Man, I just enjoy drawing these goofy critters. There's a big mustache. We gotta draw our hair. Draw our antennae. Oh, we've got another new person, Gelfling A380. Hello. Is that a Jim Henson reference for Gelflings? We've talked about San Diego Comic-Con's past. We've talked about creators. I've been lucky. I've met so many creators over the years, and and I've met I'll just say all of the celebrities. One of the San Diego stories that I tell people, it's actually the one time where I actually felt physically unsafe at a show was when, again, I mentioned the NEC booth was catty corner from the DC booth, and the year that they brought the entire Justice League cast to the DC booth, they announced it over the loudspeakers, and there was just this giant crush of people. And the NEC booth, little little booth, and this giant crowd was pushed up against it, and it was people for football field lengths in both directions. And um, people were so crushed in that as I was seated there signing comics, people were pushing the tables in. So like there were so many people that the booth was getting crushed. Like tables were being pushed in, some comics and stuff fell over, and nobody was paying attention to anybody. And like that was the situation where like if somebody had fallen, it just would have been catastrophe. But yes, and Affleck and Gal Gadot and all of them were, arm's length away as they were walking to the booth. Um, I've gotten to meet Momoa a handful of times over the year. I met Gal once. Um, and when I say met, it's not just like, hey, how you doing? I don't count those. So it's usually like if I met them at the hotel or if I saw them at a in a green room and chatted for a little bit. I count that as met. Like, you say hello and introduce yourself and chat for more than 2 seconds. Gelfling says, not many people know about the Dark Crystal, so it's rare that I hear people say the name right. I'm an old man. I grew up with the original movies, so my dad was a big proponent of Jim Henson stuff. So Muppets were Jim Henson was a big influence on Undersea Hero, actually. So like a character like Professor Prawn, if anybody was ever like, oh, what if they ever did a movie? It would just be something along the lines of like Farscape, where you have people talking to really neat looking animatronic-y puppety things, and then the tone would have sort of like a Batman 66 tone to it, and it would be very confusing for people. Um, Oh, I think you could easily do it. Like PG-13 or I don't know if you could do PG just because of the shell piece. I think that would immediately get you the PG-13 rating. Professor Prawn's partner in crime there, the correlator, his shell piece, he has a very large shell in front of his shorts. It's like a cod piece, but it's a shell. But yeah, when they announced the Justice League and there was that crush of people, that was the only time I've ever seen so many people at Comic Con to where I was actually worried about people. Gelfling says, my uncle had the VHS tape. I'm pretty young, but I remember being scared of the puppets when I was younger, but now I'm older and I adore the film for everything it is. It is a wonderful movie, The Dark Crystal. Yeah, the Jim Henson Company also did a show called Farscape, which was a science fiction show. So if you've never seen that one, that's a very and it's dated now, but like it's a very entertaining show, especially if you like the whole puppet aspect to films. And hey, Michael Caine was the one that said it. You're not truly famous until you're in a film with a Muppet. And I agree with him. I will say, as far as like the Justice League cast and like those actors, Momoa is a nice guy. He's one of like six celebrity guests that I can say I've seen at multiple shows, shopping in Artist Alley and talking to the creators. Especially if there was an Aquaman artist at the show, he talked to multiple ones that I know, just because they were there. Like he popped over to see them. So as far as those A-list celebrities go, he was always very nice. Not that the other ones weren't nice. I would just say that he was especially like went out of his way to support the artists and just be out and about. Well, one of the most surreal experiences I had at San Diego Comic-Con was the year the Tick Show came out from Amazon, and they had a big giant Amazon booth, and the tick was everywhere. They made a walkthrough experience. There were like giant robotic antennae outside. It was wild that this little, independent comic book had this giant San Diego Comic-Con presence. And we went to the big signing with the cast. Jeff and I did, because we did the San Diego Comic-Con special book that year. So we went to that with Ben and met everybody, and some of them came back to the booth. And Griffin Newman was just like the nicest guy. He's the guy that played Arthur. He's also in the Masters of the Universe cartoon show. He does the voice of Orko. He's been in a ton of movies and TV since then, but like he'll always be Arthur to me. I'm sorry. And he was such a big cheerleader for trying to get the show picked up for its third season. What was supposed to be as I was told, they had planned it for a trilogy, and then that was really it, as far as the main first story. Like obviously, if it did gangbusters, Ben could write a million stories. But like from what I was told, the original pitch was for a story to be told in three parts, which beginning, middle, and end makes sense, right? But honestly, I didn't hang around with any celebrities for the most part. Like, if I bumped into them in the green room, you end up just chatting because you're all sitting there eating the same thing, and then you're all waiting for the shuttle to get to the same hotel or whatever. John Amos, one of the nicest guys I met, as far as celebrities go. Actor celebrities. So many artists have done the Conan variant covers. I'm just now thinking of more that I've met, like, that have done Conan stuff. So it's like, I don't know, it's hard to tell. Like, I probably have to specify people who did like original Marvel run Conan, recent Marvel run Conan, Dark Horse run Conan, because like John Lucas worked on the Conans for Dark Horse, and he did a Undersea Hero cover. I know Andrew's a big Conan fan, so like I'm trying to think of. Brian's right. He says they alluded to Thrakazog at the end of season 2, and I was so excited for 3, then so sad. Yeah, and to me, they got the suit perfect in season 2. The tick suit, he looked so ridiculous with the giant muscle suit. It made me laugh just to look at him, and that's what I go for with Undersea Hero. Like, I had people ask me if they thought, this character, like the correlator, looked cool. And I said, no, he looks funny. And they were just flabbergasted by that statement. One of the other things that I do all the time is just the one little piece of hair because I just think it looks funny. It's silly looking and stupid. I will say that Jackie Earl Haley had the funniest line at the signing when Jeff and I were talking to him, and they were flipping through the new comic book, and he was, we were like, yeah, Jeff wrote it and I drew it, and he was like, you guys are the real artists. Like, gave us the thumbs up like a TV commercial, and Jeff and I both looked at each other and smiled, said thank you, and went back to it. That was the year I met Gabe Crate. I actually had never met Gabe before that. Um, I'd met Sean Wong a few times because he's not super local, but he's local enough to where I am that I see him at enough shows around here. Um, in Bologna, says nice drawings, bro. Thank you. Yeah, we're working on the pencils of this page. This is the preliminary drawing, so you can see, like, here's the story as I planned it, and then here's where we're working on the big drawing. So we're not going to work too much longer. I'm starting to get tired. I don't want to get frustrated with the page like I did last time. I actually ended up redrawing a good chunk of the last page just because I went too far ahead on the stream and I got tired and the drawing was not as good. So, we'll see. We'll see if we can rough it out without running out of gas. But and you can see I'm really like loose with my pencils at this point in my career. I go back in and I tighten it up a lot while I'm inking, you know. You'll see, like, I'll make those final line decisions, and it'll clean it out so that when we color it, you're not gonna have all kinds of extra lines for this style. Like, for this book, I wanted the open line look with, spotted blacks and, the black ink shadows, and then having, a nice area for color since this is a full color book. I do wonder if it'll be possible to take all of the, making of videos that we've done so far and then do, like, a big supercut. I don't know, there's just so many of them, it's gonna take a while. But, like, I would speed it up super fast and then show each page as they're done in between that we did. I just think that would be a cool way to do, like, a big, "Hey, here's how you make a comic book," or, "Here's how this comic book was made," video. Maybe I would do that and just send it to the backers first as, like, a thank you. Here's all the hard work. Although I might find it depressing to see, like, uh, what'll end up being, like, a year of my life in, like, a 10-minute video. That might depress me also. And people might have seen the little ink wash page that I did. That's just me writing some other stuff in order to stay fresh on these pages in between, like, when I'm doing a lunch break or whatever, I've gotta work on other stuff. I can't just grind 24/7. Yeah, I think we're gonna end on this panel. It's been a tough week, but we're halfway home. We've made it to Wednesday, and some people are just getting to San Diego. It's preview night, right? That's tonight? Or is it tomorrow? I think it's tonight. Or is today just setup day? I haven't looked. I don't remember. I haven't looked at the schedule because I'm not there. Um, in order to get in early, they had to give you these sticker badges for setup, and you had to have a different one for each day. So if you were working a booth, you had to have these sticker badges to be there at times when other people weren't allowed to be there. Otherwise, they would come around and kick you out, and they were merciless about that stuff. I do remember that at my early trips to San Diego, it was at the height of the fervor. Um, Brian says, "So disappointing we didn't get to go." You mean this year? Were you guys thinking about going this year? But at the height of the fervor of the Funko Pop mania, when, like, people would be able to pay for their trips to San Diego if they can manage to get the one ridiculous Funko Pop and immediately list it on eBay. And people ask why they flip them. Um, Back then, that's why they did, because they could do it and pay for their whole trip with one Funko Pop. Oh, with NEC. Yeah. Yeah. When NEC, and again, they called me, said, "Hey, we think we're going to do it this year." And then they dragged me along and they had me even pick out a flight and stuff. And then they're like, "Oh, we're not going." It's that kind of stuff, man. That's why I got to just do my own books, my own characters, my own stuff, my own booths. Yeah. But yeah, there were people when they would announce the door opening and those Funko people would just sprint I mean, it looked like they would tackle their grandmother to get one of those things because it was that hot of a thing. Like I had never seen that level of like hoopla over anything, and like the fervor and like the ravenous, merciless gumption. Absolutely, Brian. You know I'll bug you. I'm still working on stuff with Baltimore. If there's a chance it could go one way or the other with how we're going to be set up there. So like, if it's just one table, then I don't think you'd have any room. But like, if for some reason we get more space, which is not impossible, I don't think it's likely, but I don't think it's impossible. I'll bug you um, about that one. If you want to talk on the phone this week, I can fill you in on where that's at off of the stream. I can give you since this is in a helping capacity, I can give you the deets, as the young people when I was young used to say. Now let's zoom out, see we can see where we're at. I'm gonna call it a night because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. There's the prelim. There's the pencils as we're working on them. There's the first couple of panels. Bring it closer. There's the first panel. Second panel. Third panel. And then there's panels 4 and 5 underneath. Nope, we forgot to add the bristling mustache motion lines. Got to have those. Very important. You could even maybe have like one hair fall out. And then here's the page 32 that we finished last week. And hey, thanks everybody for coming and hanging out. And thanks for supporting the show. And those new people that came by, welcome aboard. And, we'll be back next Wednesday. We are no longer broadcasting on Twitter because the person who runs that platform wants to require us to purchase a membership. So we will no longer be streaming over on that, but you can still watch us every week on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and encnichols.com. So thanks everybody for coming, and I hope you have a great night and a wonderful weekend. And everybody at Comic-Con, go get them. Good night.